Merry meet, it's Annie here on a beautiful, beautiful Saturday morning. It's a morning for laying around and being lazy, according to Ernie. I thought today I'd share a little bit about my altar space and my tools because that is what brought my interest to YouTube videos. When I first started watching them, I love seeing people's altars and sacred space and their witchy rooms and the things that they use to inspire them in the way of tools. I just love that. My altar is actually a cedar chest which came down through my family, I think to my great-grandmother's age, if not my grandmother. That's where it came to from me. In front of the altar you will see my current journal, which always sits in front of the altar and which is probably one of the two tools I will not do without. I need, personally. I write before, sometimes during, and always after rites, workings, and meditations. So while the top of the altar is a little bit busy because I kind of hauled out everything to show you, I will slip in a photo of how it usually sits. I prefer a quieter space. I bring things onto my altar as I need them and just brought everything out to be sure I included it in this video for this morning. Well, you can't see my paten very clearly in the middle because it's actually underneath my decorative paten, which is underneath my presence light. I'll show it to you separately. To the north, you'll see my cauldron. To east, you'll see my bell, my wand, and my censer. To the south, you'll see incense and my blade. And to the west, you'll see my chalice. So I will clean off my altar top, and I will show you my tools individually. So this is the more usual top of my altar, which I prefer to keep simple. And then I add whatever I need or am inspired to use as I work on something. This is my cauldron, which as you can see is well used. In fact, still has the ashes to be made offering of from some work I did last night. It usually looks something like this. It's not the tidiest thing on my altar. It's an unusual cauldron for a peace-loving pagan to have. It actually was something I found at a flea market a long time ago from a gentleman who was a Civil War reenactor. And he and I had a great conversation that afternoon. I still remember it. It was it was a warm and wonderful conversation. This cauldron was actually the smelting pot that he used to melt lead for the bullets for his reenactment. Like I said, it's a very unusual piece to end up on a sacred altar. It is extremely heavy. It's about 10 pounds. It loves to hold water, and it loves to hold fire. And I've always liked the fact that it wants to hold both equally. It's been a very powerful tool for me. It goes to show you can adapt many things that you find to work well in your path. I did offer it with water to the moon and then buried it in the earth for a dark moon to consecrate it when I first brought it home. And it has served me well. It's really been a good piece. This is my bell. I prefer bells that have separate clappers or which can be struck with your blade. I don't like bells that are shook and rattled and create that kind of, to me, noise. This is my wand. It is made out of driftwood from the Pacific Northwest. What I like is that it is extremely light in the hand. Very, very different feel than holding a blade. Totally different energy, very much the energy of air. Particularly like this piece, which was pre-shaped when I bought it. It was already shaped. It wasn't varnished and it wasn't colored, but it was pre-shaped. Very phallic, but then also has the symbol of the goddess, the circle, as part of the structure of it. I just really have always enjoyed working with this wand. And here we have my censer. This I've had a long time. The brass is worn out, the handle is worn. It's always on my altar because I always work with incense during all of my meditations and rites. It doesn't usually keep its lid on, which is still nice and shiny, but as you can see, it no longer has the shiny patina. It has the, I'm doing my job very well, thank you, patina. This is my current container for the incense I'm working with, left over from the season as it's winding down. It's actually nothing more than the incense top off of a very old cast iron incense holder on top of a, I think of it as a snuff container, but one of those metal containers that you can buy. And the reason is that holds my pellet incense, which is exactly what it sounds like. It is pellets of resins and herbs put together. I used a base of honey for these. I learned this from Crazy Boy, Texas, and if you want to learn how to make these, oh, they're great fun to make. if you did the search on incense pellets, you would eventually find his site on this. These are large because they're being used outside. Indoors, I would use about a pea-sized pellet because you could probably asphyxiate inside with the size of these. These are left over from our last full moon ritual outside. I use powdered incense. My botanicals are all in my meditation room, so when I am doing work for myself, or even if I'm doing work for Circle, I will just put a variety of botanicals around me and then grab what feels right to use in the middle of ritual and mix them as I go. This, as you certainly know, is my blade. My blade is also unusual in that my tradition taught us about black-handled and white-handled knives, but a black-handled knife never made itself known to me. Instead, I've had this one all the years of my practice, which does stay in its sheath when I'm not using it. Now, I am a creature of traditional Wicca, and my blade is the other tool, other than my journal, that I simply cannot do without. My chalice, bless her heart, is very old, served well, actually still continues to serve well. Still wants to be used for water that's being blessed for asperging, so still resides very strongly as part of my practice, but is no longer a chalice I would use for, say, cakes and wine, or I have other chalices that I will use that don't have the same significance to me. This is the patent that has been empowered for my use. It is the one that I store energy in. It's the one I do blessings on. It's the one that holds the centering of my altar and my sacred space. Now, I was gifted with this patent, well, I guess about 15 years ago, by an online friend who made it for me as she was beginning her first steps in making stained glass. And it's a beautiful, beautiful piece. It actually resides on my altar on top of my working patent as a meditation tool. And also it is an offering plate, an offering space. It can be used to take offerings outside, to put cakes on to bless them, to put other things on to bless them. So I actually have an abundance of patents. I have two that are really, really powerful working tools and which I cherish. And if we look beyond Ernie's head, this is my presence candle. I guess probably the last of the tools I'll show today. And it was a recent gift for last Yule, actually. For me, it is as simple as this. While I've shown you my collection of things, everything was found, everything was gifted, everything came to me in the way the universe intended to provide it. I like handling things, touching, feeling, smelling, hefting things, having a relationship with these things. When I work with each of these energies of these tools, the power of what I do is increased. It's just the way I work. I don't need any of them. Tools can as easily be a feather or a rock found on a walk. These are mine because I've developed a relationship with them over the years, and they are my partners. I wish you mirth and reverence. Merry part.